Hello everyone, welcome to Photoshop 3D part. Today we're going to create a hybrid drawing of wireframe and rendering image like this. It's kind of like a close looking of the presentation of one moment space. As you can also see in this poster, the drawing will serve a component in this final layout as well. 3 programs will be used coherently in this workflow, which are Rhino, Photoshop, and Illustrator. I will go through really quick of the several steps and the crucial functions. However, this video would majorly focus on the workflow rather than specific techniques. To start with this, we can open up the SketchUp model. As you can see in this SketchUp model, we have armature, circulation system, and 3-moment space. It's quite similar to what you guys are working on for the D3 Studio. And then we need to go to Rhino and bring this entire thing into Rhino. You can go to File menu, Save As, and choose SketchUp version 8 or 7, so Rhino 5 could open it smoothly. If you have questions about this transporting, you can go watch the video to see how to do that. So we have our model opened in here in Rhino, which is being imported from SketchUp. At first, we need to clean up something before we actually go into the rendering part. Let's say we really like this angle of this model. To save this view into the file, you can go to the View menu, Set View, and name the views, and click this Save As button to give it a name. Let's say Perspective 5, and it's in there. And then you can move on to rotate the model and do some editing stuff. When you want to pull back the camera, you can go to the same place to pull back the camera's position. For our purpose, I will just stick on this view for the rendering part. The other thing is that the ground plane, because this is an interior rendering pretty much, so we would like to turn off the ground plane. So in here, remember to uncheck the first option of the ground plane options. So in the rendering, the ground plane will not show up as a big white plane. Also remember to check the material editor before you go into the render part. As you can see in here, we have concrete, glass, and wood, which has been already categorized from several layers in here. And then at last, let's check several options from Brazil basic settings. In here, to keep as much information as we want for the post-production in Photoshop, we need to make the whole image darker. So in here, level, I usually put it lower than 1 in here, so the lighting would be weaker for the general lighting. Also in here, in this Luma server, in this column of skylight, I usually put this number lower than 1. So in that way, we will have much more information of a dark image when we put it back to Photoshop. The other thing is that in the Luma server, we need to turn off the shadows because this is an interior space. So the shadows would be quite disturbing in that. So we can turn off the shadows by uncheck this option. The last of last, remember to check the output size in here to make it big enough for our purpose. We can just use 3000 for our image. Once you are done with all the options, you can click the render button to start the rendering part. After the rendering is done, you can save it to a PNG file which is like that. For next part, we can go to Photoshop, and by pressing the Ctrl-N to make a new file, we can name it as View 1 and change the unit in here. For our purpose, maybe 15 inches by 15 inches would be sufficient, and click OK. A new canvas will show up in this interface. Also as well, we can pull and open this rendered image and press V to activate the Move tool and drag all the way to our new canvas. In here, you can use Ctrl-T to free transform that to make it as big as you want, and press Enter to confirm the transporting. So in here, I would recommend to rename the new layer as Render. So in future, when the layers get more and more, it will be easy for you to find out which is which. And now we need another ingredient for our drawing, which is a wireframe. To do the wireframe part, we can go to Rhino and make sure the view is a saved view, which is perspective 1. And press Ctrl-A to select the whole thing. And on the command bar, you can type in Make 2D, and press Enter to activate that. And in here, you can just leave those options blank and choose the current view and press OK. It goes to the top view. To activate the top view, you can press really quick Ctrl F1 to go to the top view. As you can see in here, it shows up as a pure line drawing. So pretty much in this function, it's being flattened as a line drawing after you performed the Make 2D as that. To save this line drawing, you can go to File menu and Export Selected. It will pop up this dialog box, and you can give it as a name. And remember to choose the file format as Adobe Illustrator AI file. And options, you can leave it as default and press Save. So in here, in this Illustrator interface, we have opened up the file we just exported from Rhino of Making 2D command. In here, you can find the line drawing in here. And the first step is to press Ctrl-A to select all the lines and make the line width as 0.75 or 1 point. Let's say we just put it as 1 point in here. And the next part is to bring this wireframe drawing to our Photoshop to do the combining part. You can Ctrl-A of the whole thing and Ctrl-C and Ctrl-V back to our Photoshop drawing. Those options might be pixels, so it will be one new layer of the wireframe part. You can use also Ctrl-T to free transform this part to make them matching together. So in this drawing, we have matched them together of the wireframe part and the rendering image. And we have already put them in separate names, which is wire and render in here. For our final production, maybe to put the wireframe layer in a lower opacity. And now we can start to work on the Photoshop part, since we have those informations in here. To change the visibility with all the information on that layer, we usually achieve that with the layers mask. Down here, you can find the function in layers panel, which is this layers mask. And also we can go ahead to add layers mask for the wireframe layer as well. So for the layers mask, it's a smart way to hide the information on that layer with keeping all the information without deleting. So pretty much for the layers mask, the black means to hide and the white means to show. It is entirely white for this layers mask, so it's being entirely shown for that layer. So that's how simple it works for the layers mask. And then we will draw on the mask. Actually, in here there will be two tools which we will use. One is the polygon lasso tool, which is here. The other is the brush tool, right here. At first, let's just use the polygon lasso tool. You can activate that by pressing Shift and L to activate the polygon lasso tool. And then we can start to draw on our layers mask and make sure the mask is selected, and also make sure the foreground color is black. So that means to hide that part away. For example, for our purpose, we will hide this part. You can go ahead to click on the screen, making the selections, and double click to close this selection. After you made this selection, you can go ahead to press Alt and backspace to actually fill that part with black. Because it is on the mask, so black means to hide, so we just actually just hide this part of our layer. And then you can go ahead to clear this selection and hide other parts as well. So for our result, we will need to hide this armature part and this part, and also the entire part of the stairs back there. So we can go ahead to go to this view and make selection of this part. Close the selection and Alt backspace to fill that part as black. Also go on Alt and backspace to clear that part. And also for this big armature, we can also do the same. Close this selection and Alt backspace to clear this part. And for the lower part might be easier, so we just select the whole thing. And Alt backspace. So literally we just draw on the mask to hide the information on the layer. You can hold Shift to turn on the turn off the mask. So that's how the mask works for this part. The other thing that we need to use is a brush tool in here. You can activate brush tool by pressing B right here. To make this kind of effect of fading away, we need to have a brush tool to draw on the mask to make it like that. So we have selected the brush tool, right? So we just go to the options and make like a huge brush with a really low hardness. So we have a big brush with really soft edges. And then we can go to draw on this mask. And remember, maybe you need to change the opacity to a lower number, so it will not fade away the whole thing. So in that way, we can start to slowly draw on this part to make it fading away, like that. I think that's it. For the next part, maybe we need to inhabit some people in here. You can go to Illustrator to open up this example file. Let's see, we will just choose this figure and press Ctrl C and go back to Photoshop and paste it into our drawing like that. Press Enter to confirm the scaling. And also we can move in more figures and scale a little bit. So pretty much we can move in skillies by Ctrl C and Ctrl V. After you moved in those skillies, I'd like to choose those two layers and press Ctrl G to make them as a group. It's kind of an easier way to organize all the layers in one type. You can just double click the title of the layer and rename it as people. In that. If you think the people is too dark, you can just really quick press in some number between 1 to 9 to really quick to set the opacity of this layer. For example, we think this figure is too dark. We can just press in like 2. So it will be 20 in opacity. Maybe 4. For this one, also 4. So that's a quick way to adjust the opacity by pressing the number from 1 to 9. And for our wireframe drawing, this part should also be fading away. So we can hold our Alt and drag this old mask from our rendering image to the wireframe image layer. It will ask you to replace. Say yes. Maybe it's been fading away too much. We can go to select eraser tool in here. So that's a way to make it showing up more. So we choose the eraser and erase this part. So the wireframe will show up in here because we cleaned up the black area. Like that. So that's a fading away part of this image. And at last of last, we may want to add some adjustment layers of this rendering layer. You can go to Layers panel and down here you can select several kinds of adjustment layers. In here we need brightness and contrast, and also the levels, and hue and saturation. And because that those adjustment layers will only work for the render part, so we need to activate the clipping mask down here, so it will only work with the targeting layer, which is the rendered layer. And you can close that and double click to open these options. Maybe we want to saturate the whole image by dragging this option to a higher number, to the levels. Maybe make it darker by dragging this, and brighter. Also brightness and contrast make the whole thing brighter like that. So that's the adjustment layers, which would be quite useful for our colorful image. Alright, eventually we have this kind of image on our screen, And I think that's pretty much what we are targeting to do on today. So that's pretty much of that. There's so many more that I would like to share with you of Photoshop, but I will just stop in here. Please email me if you have any questions. See you in next video. Okay.